So in the last video, we touched on a couple key points about choosing the right microphone for your voice and for the environment in which you're recording in. So now I'm going to assume that you've got yourself a microphone. It could be the perfect microphone, or it could be the only microphone you have. And you know what? It doesn't matter. All you have to concern yourself with right now is getting the best possible sound that you can, regardless of your circumstances. So the first thing I want to look at here is levels. Now you'll notice here that I've got this plugin that's basically giving me a VU representation of my levels here. This is the VU meter plugin, and it's a free add-on that's available through Presonus. And you can access that here through the cloud over here. So you could just go to the Presonus shop over here, sign in, and you'll be able to find it under plugins. VU meter. Now I love this plugin, and the reason I love this plugin is because I really like using VU meter for setting my recording levels, because that's the way I learned. So what I tend to do, because I always want to have a consistent levels whenever I'm recording, because that helps with consistent headphone monitoring when recording, and it also helps with consistent metering. So what I tend to do is I'll put a VU meter as the first plugin instance on the track that I'm recording, as you can see over here. And then by single clicking this VU meter, I'm able to actually view it. And if we have the inspector open, I can view it over here. Now the settings that I tend to go with for here is the scale of 18, which is basically saying that 0 VU on this VU meter is a representation of a -18 dBFS scale, and that's RMS, which is our average levels. And then I just simply pull down the sensitivity a little bit so that the needle's not bouncing all over the place. But in general, if I'm hovering somewhere around the 0 VU mark, which is what I'm doing here, I'm happy with that level, and that's where I tend to track when I do my voiceovers. Now conversely, if we look over here on the digital meters, you'll notice that my needle here, or my meter, is hopping around, and it seems to be peaking somewhere around the -12 mark. Maybe it goes to -9 if I go a little bit louder, but it's pretty consistent at -12. This is also another way that you can monitor, is by going by your peak levels. But I tend to use both. And the other thing I've developed over the last couple years is I tend to talk really evenly. So I control my dynamics at the source, and I control my distance at the microphone. Now, in addition to that, I've got a little bit of compression that's happening on the way in, so that I'm not overdriving any levels and that I'm tracking something that's consistent. Now, one thing to keep in mind about peak levels is peak levels are good, and if they're the only thing you have, you can use them. But you have to be aware of the dynamic range of the content that you're recording. So for instance, if you know that you're recording something really low, but you know that there's something that's going to be coming up where it might be a yell, you have to be aware of that, because even though we could be doing perfectly fine right now, if you have a certain part of your script that's going to require a yell, that peak level, even though it's showing that we have, 12 dBs of headroom right now, you might be hitting 0 a lot quicker than you think. So something to keep in mind is always headroom. Now, like I said, for me, this is good enough, but I know people who will record even lower than this. And that's fine too, because as long as we're working in a 24-bit environment, we can always bring things down if our signal to noise ratio is good. So in the next video, we're going to have a look at some of the different recording options that we have available.